Do you feel a tightness in your chest every time you're about to spend money on something? That unpleasant sensation of watching money evaporate from your hand? Well, I'm going to tell you something. What you have is keeping you increasingly broke. And look, it's not your fault. Since childhood we hear that paying is bad, that money just goes away, and that's it. Goodbye. But there's a simple way to change all of this. A very brilliant wise woman named Florence revealed it long ago. She understood that the words we speak every day have incredible power. When you keep grumbling that money only goes away, you're sending an order to your brain and the universe saying you don't have money. And guess what? You actually run out of money. But when you change the way you speak, things start transforming in ways you won't believe. The phrase is very clear. I spend with gratitude and know this money returns to me multiplied. That's it. But you have to repeat it every single time you're about to pay for something. Whether at the butcher shop, the electric bill, the bar, the subway, anywhere, always. In the next 80 minutes, we're going to dive into the complete universe of this transformation. You'll discover not only why this magical phrase works, but how Florence Scovel Shinn revolutionized the understanding of money and abundance over 100 years ago. You'll learn the exact science behind mental reprogramming. You'll hear real stories of people who completely transformed their financial lives, and you'll receive a complete arsenal of practical tools you can apply starting today. But before we continue, I want you to do something with me. Close your eyes for a moment and remember the last time you had to pay for something important. Maybe it was rent, maybe a car repair, maybe an unexpected medical bill. Relive that exact moment when you took out the money or swiped the card. What did you feel in your body? Tension in your shoulders? A knot in your stomach? That sensation that something valuable was slipping from your hands? Now open your eyes. That feeling you just remembered is exactly what's sabotaging your abundance. And in the next few minutes, you're going to learn to transform that feeling of loss into a feeling of multiplication. You're going to learn to convert every expense into an investment in your future prosperity. Let me explain exactly why this works. But first, you need to understand something fundamental about how your mind operates. Your mind functions like an extraordinarily sophisticated machine, but also extraordinarily literal. If you live saying, "Oh, this money just evaporates," the brain memorizes that and starts making you act like needy people. You don't catch opportunities to earn more. You don't believe you can improve. You always live with anxiety that you'll lack. Your subconscious mind doesn't distinguish between what's real and what you vividly imagine. It doesn't differentiate between what you experience physically and what you experience emotionally through your words and thoughts. When you say, "Money goes away from me," your subconscious mind interprets this as a direct instruction and begins creating circumstances for money to actually go away from you. But here's the magic. If you change the instructions, you change the results. If you start saying, "This money returns multiplied," it's like changing the brain's program. The brain begins looking for ways for you to earn more. You start seeing opportunities that previously went unnoticed. You become more confident, more creative, more receptive to abundance. Florence Scovel Shinn discovered something revolutionary in the 1920s, something that modern science is only beginning to fully validate. She understood that every word that comes out of your mouth is like an order you give to the universe. As she herself wrote in her masterpiece, "Your words are your magic wand. With them, you can create or destroy your world." This extraordinary woman wasn't just a spiritual writer, she was a visionary who understood the universal laws governing our reality long before quantum physics began scientifically explaining these phenomena. Florence was born in 1871, at a time when women had very few opportunities to express their wisdom publicly. But she managed to become one of the most influential spiritual teachers of her time. Her understanding of metaphysical laws was so profound that her books continue transforming lives more than 100 years later. The Game of Life and How to Play It. Your word is your wand. The Secret Door to Success and The Power of the Spoken Word aren't just books, they're operating manuals for human reality. Florence understood something most people don't comprehend, that we live in a mental universe. Everything we see in the physical world is first created in the mental world. As she said, all events in your life are the result of your habitual thoughts and words. This isn't abstract philosophy. It's physics applied to human experience. Imagine for a moment that your subconscious mind is like the hard drive of a quantum computer. For years, decades even, you've been installing the same corrupted program. Money is scarce. Paying hurts. There's never enough. Rich people are bad. Money doesn't grow on trees. You have to work hard to earn money. This corrupted program has been running in the background, sabotaging every opportunity for prosperity that presents itself in your life. Every time your parents complained about bills, every time you heard, "There's no money for that," every time you saw tension at home when invoices arrived, your subconscious mind was recording these patterns as absolute truths about the nature of money. And now, as an adult, these programs continue running automatically, creating the same experiences of scarcity you observed in your childhood. But here's the magic. You can reprogram that hard drive. You can install new software, one that's aligned with the infinite abundance of the universe. And the tool to do it is your words, spoken with conviction and repeated with constancy until they become your new automatic reality. Neuroscientists call this neuroplasticity. Your brain literally reconfigures itself based on the thoughts and words you constantly repeat. Every time you repeat, "I spend with gratitude and know this money returns to me multiplied," you're strengthening neural connections associated with abundance and weakening connections associated with scarcity. Dr. Joe Dispenza, one of the world's most recognized neuroscientists, has demonstrated through thousands of brain scans that when you change your habitual thoughts, you literally change the physical structure of your brain. Neural connections strengthen in areas associated with abundance and weaken in areas associated with scarcity. Within weeks of consistent practice, you can create new neural circuits that support a completely different experience with money. Before you had a deteriorated path in your brain that automatically led to scarcity. Every time you thought about money, your mind traveled that familiar path of worry, anxiety, and limitation. Now you're going to make a new path that leads directly to prosperity. But you have to travel that new path every day until it becomes solid, until it becomes your new mental highway to abundance. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that man is his own law. His word is his magic wand. She understood that we live in a mental universe, where our thoughts and words are the creative forces that shape our experience. In her masterpiece, The Game of Life and How to Play It, Shinn explains that life is literally a game, and the rules of this game are universal laws. One of the most important rules is the law of the word. Everything you declare with conviction and faith manifests in your physical reality. This isn't superstition, it's the basic functioning of human consciousness. When you say, "I spend with gratitude and know this money returns to me multiplied," you're not simply pronouncing words. You're activating a universal law. You're sending a specific vibration to the quantum field that surrounds us. You're programming your subconscious mind to seek and recognize opportunities for abundance. Shinn used to say, "Never violate the law of love. Giving and receiving are one in truth." When you spend with gratitude instead of resentment, you're aligning with this universal law of giving and receiving. You're recognizing that money is energy in motion, and that your role is to allow that energy to flow through you, not retain it out of fear. Most people live in reaction mode when it comes to money. They see a bill and react with fear. They have to pay for something and react with resentment. They think about the financial future and react with anxiety. But you're going to learn to live in conscious creation mode. Every time you spend money, you have a golden opportunity to create more abundance in your life. Instead of seeing spending as a loss, you see it as an investment in the universal flow of abundance. Instead of contracting with fear, you expand with gratitude. Instead of resisting money's movement, you become a conscious channel for its circulation. Florence taught that gratitude is the most powerful magnet for attracting good. When you spend with genuine gratitude, you're magnetizing more money toward your life. It's not magic in the supernatural sense, it's universal law. It's quantum physics applied to your financial reality. It's the recognition that you live in an abundant universe, not a scarce one. But let me be very clear with you about something important. It's not enough to say the phrase like a parrot, without feeling, without conviction. You have to really feel it. When you're about to spend, show genuine joy. Feel satisfied for having that thing you're paying for. Light in the house is wonderful. Food on the table is a fortune. The morning coffee is pleasurable. Transportation that takes you to work is a blessing. Give sincere thanks and say the phrase with total conviction. I spend with gratitude and know this money returns to me multiplied. At first, you're going to think it's kind of weird. You're going to feel like you're fooling yourself, that it doesn't work, that it's too simple to be true. It's completely normal. Relax. You've spent your whole life absorbing the opposite of this. You've been conditioned for decades to see spending as loss, to feel anxiety about money, to live from scarcity. But if you don't stop and persist speaking, if you maintain the practice with discipline and faith, in a week you'll already see the difference. You're going to feel lighter, more carefree when the topic is money, and things start happening out of nowhere. Small miracles you would have previously called coincidences, but that you now recognize as the direct result of your new financial vibration. An unexpected discount on something you needed to buy. Someone returns that old money they owed you that you had already given up for lost. Extra work arrives, a raise at your job, a business opportunity you hadn't considered. Money starts circulating toward you from directions you hadn't even imagined. Because money is like flowing water. It needs to move, it can't stay stagnant. When you block it with fear, with that annoyance, with resistance, the flow gets blocked. But when you allow it to circulate freely, when you bless it in its movement, it surely multiplies. It's the law of creation in action. Like breathing in and breathing out. You release the air and it returns again, renewed. With money, it's exactly the same. You pay calmly and it returns, but multiplied. Let me tell you something revealing that you've probably observed but never consciously analyzed. You know people who earn little, but always have extra, always manage, always find a way to get ahead. They seem to have special luck with money. And you also know people who earn well, who have respectable salaries, but live constantly complaining that they're broke. Always in the red, always tight, always worried about money? What's the real difference between these two types of people? It's not the salary, it's not education, it's not luck, it's not family background. The difference is in what happens in their minds, in what they talk about and deeply believe about money. It's their energetic relationship with abundance that determines their financial experience. People who always manage have a basic confidence in the universe's provision. They may not express it in spiritual terms, but at a subconscious level they trust that there will always be a way. When they spend, they don't feel that contraction of fear. When a financial need arises, they don't panic. Their nervous system is calibrated for abundance. On the contrary, people who always struggle with money, regardless of how much they earn, have a nervous system calibrated for scarcity. They live in a constant state of financial alert. Every expense is a threat. Every bill is an enemy. Their subconscious mind is programmed to see danger where others see opportunity. Florence taught that every word that comes out of your mouth is like an order you give to the universe. If you live saying, "I'm broke," or "I'm ruined," if you constantly complain that money doesn't stretch, you remain exactly in that condition. Your word becomes your reality. If you affirm with conviction, money returns multiplied. If you declare, "I am prosperous and abundant," that becomes your new manifested truth. The universe listens to you, your brain hears you, your nervous system responds, but you need to transmit the correct signal. You need to be consistent with the message you send. You can't declare abundance in the morning and complain about scarcity in the afternoon. Your vibration has to be coherent. Let me tell you the story of Maria Elena, a woman I met a few years ago who perfectly exemplifies this transformation. Maria Elena worked as a secretary in a small accounting firm and earned just enough to cover her basic expenses. She had 2 small children and lived alone after a difficult divorce. Every time she had to pay for something, she felt exactly that chest tightness I mentioned at the beginning. She constantly complained that money slipped through her fingers and that it never stretched for anything. Her conversations with friends always revolved around how expensive everything was, how difficult it was to make ends meet, how unfair it was that the rich had so much while she struggled so much. One day, Maria Elena found a Florence Scovel Shinn book in a second-hand bookstore. Initially, she was skeptical, but something in Florence's words resonated deeply with her. She decided to apply exactly what I'm teaching you now. She began repeating, "I spend with gratitude and know this money returns to me multiplied every time she had to pay for something." At first, she felt ridiculous, especially when she had to pay rent or utility bills. But she persisted. In the first week, she found $20 in the pocket of a jacket she hadn't worn in months. Coincidence, she thought. In the second week, her boss offered her overtime that hadn't been available before. Luck, she told herself. But in the third month, something extraordinary happened. She received a better-paying job proposal that came through an acquaintance who coincidentally remembered her for a position that had just opened. The new job not only paid double her previous salary, but included benefits she had never had. But the most important thing wasn't these external events, although they were wonderful. What really changed was Maria Elena's relationship with money. She no longer felt that constant anxiety. She no longer saw every expense as a loss. She had transformed her financial vibration from scarcity to abundance. She had become a different person, a person who lived from confidence instead of fear. 6 months after beginning this practice, Maria Elena told me something I'll never forget. It wasn't just that I changed my words about money. I changed my complete identity. I stopped being someone who fought against life and became someone who dances with the abundance of the universe. This transformation isn't coincidence. It's the direct result of applying the universal laws that Florence Scovel Shinn taught. As she wrote, "The man who knows the truth of his being can never be poor, because wealth is his divine inheritance." Now Florence Scovel Shinn wasn't an ordinary woman of her time. Born in 1871 in Philadelphia, she lived in an era of enormous social and economic changes. She saw the American Civil War, World War I, the Great Depression, enormous fluctuations in financial markets. However, she maintained unwavering faith in the abundance of the universe. Florence began her career as an illustrator of children's books, but her true vocation emerged when she began studying metaphysical laws and teaching what she had learned. Her lectures in New York attracted hundreds of people seeking practical answers to their problems with money, health, and relationships. What made Florence unique was her ability to take profound spiritual concepts and translate them into practical applications that anyone could use immediately. She didn't speak in abstract terms or complicated philosophical language. She spoke the language of everyday life, the language of bills that need to be paid, jobs that need to be found, dreams that need to be manifested. Her understanding of metaphysical laws was so profound that she could see patterns others couldn't see. She understood that behind every financial problem was a consciousness problem. Behind every experience of scarcity was a limiting belief. Behind every struggle with money was a misalignment with the universal laws of abundance. Florence taught that man is his own savior or destroyer. You have the power to save yourself from scarcity and create abundance in your life. And it all begins with the words you choose to speak each day, with the thoughts you choose to think each moment, with the beliefs you choose to maintain about your relationship with money and life. In her work, Your Word is Your Wand, Florence explains in detail how our words are literally tools of creation. They're not just sounds that come out of our mouth, they're vibrations that shape reality. They're commands we give to the universe. They're instructions that program our subconscious mind. When you say, "I spend with gratitude and know this money returns to me multiplied," you're using your word as a magic wand. You're directing creative energy toward the manifestation of more abundance in your life. You're aligning your personal vibration with the vibration of universal prosperity. But for this magic to work completely, you need to understand the concept Florence called the creative vacuum. Before something new can enter your life, you need to create space for it. This means releasing old beliefs, old patterns, old ways of relating to money. When you feel that tightness in your chest when spending money, you're experiencing resistance. And as Florence taught, what you resist persists. Your resistance to spending is creating more situations where you'll have to spend with pain. Your struggle against money's flow is creating more experiences of scarcity. But when you change that resistance to gratitude, when you transform that contraction into expansion, when you convert that struggle into dance, you're creating the necessary vacuum for more abundance to enter your life. You're freeing space in your consciousness for completely new financial experiences. This process of creating the vacuum isn't always comfortable. It means letting go of beliefs you've had for decades. It means questioning stories about money you've considered absolute truths. It means releasing the identity of person who struggles financially and opening yourself to the possibility of being person who lives in abundance. Florence taught that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. When you repeat, "I spend with gratitude and know this money returns to me multiplied," you're exercising your faith. You're training your mind to see abundance where it previously saw scarcity. You're developing the ability to trust the invisible before it becomes visible. And here's something fascinating that modern quantum physics discovered, something Florence Scovel Shinn intuited over a century ago. The observer affects the observed. Your way of observing your financial situation literally affects your financial situation. When you observe from scarcity, when you look at your finances with fear and worry, you're collapsing quantum possibilities toward more experiences of scarcity. But when you observe from abundance, when you look at your financial life with gratitude and positive expectation, you're collapsing quantum possibilities toward experiences of prosperity. Your conscious observation is a creative force that shapes what you experience. Dr. Masaru Emoto demonstrated with his famous water crystal experiments that words and thoughts have a real physical effect on matter. When he exposed water to words of love and gratitude, the crystals that formed were beautiful and symmetrical. When he exposed water to words of hate and resentment, the crystals were deformed and chaotic. If words can change the molecular structure of water, and considering that your body is approximately 70% water, imagine what your words can do to your financial reality. Every time you say, "I spend with gratitude and know this money returns to me multiplied," you're sending waves of harmonious information through your entire being and toward the quantum field that surrounds you. You're literally reprogramming the matrix of your reality. You're changing the frequency at which you vibrate. You're tuning into the radio station of abundance instead of the radio station of scarcity. But let me be very specific about how to apply this practice for maximum results. It's not enough to say the phrase occasionally when you remember. You need to convert it into an automatic habit, into a conditioned response that naturally arises every time there's a money exchange. Every time you take money out of your wallet, every time you use your credit card, every time you make a bank transfer, every time you pay in cash, immediately repeat, "I spend with gratitude and know this money returns to me multiplied." Do it without exception, regardless of the amount, regardless of whether it's for something you consider necessary or unnecessary. At first, you'll have to consciously remind yourself to do it. Maybe put a note in your wallet, or program reminders on your phone, or ask a close friend to help you maintain the practice. But after a few weeks of consistent repetition, it will become automatic. Your subconscious mind will have adopted this new pattern, and you'll start experiencing results without conscious effort. And here's something crucial you must understand. Don't get discouraged if you don't see dramatic results immediately. Florence Scovel Shinn taught about the gestation period of manifestations. Just as a baby needs 9 months to develop completely in the womb, your new beliefs about money need time to manifest completely in your physical reality. But trust the process. As Florence said, faith is the substance of things hoped for. Maintain your faith in abundance. Maintain your practice of spending with gratitude. Maintain your declaration of multiplication, and results will come in ways you can't even imagine now. Some results will be subtle at first. Maybe you notice you feel less anxious when bills arrive. Maybe you observe that you start seeing savings opportunities you didn't notice before. Maybe you discover that people begin offering you opportunities to earn extra money in unexpected ways. Other results will be more dramatic. Salary increases you didn't expect. Money refunds you had forgotten. Business opportunities that appear out of nowhere. Unexpected gifts. Significant discounts on things you need to buy. Money will begin flowing toward you from multiple directions. I want to share with you something Florence called the law of preparation. She taught that we must prepare to receive our good before it manifests physically. This means acting as if you were already prosperous, speaking as if you were already abundant, feeling as if you already had everything you desire. When you spend with gratitude, you're applying the law of preparation. You're acting like someone who completely trusts in the abundance of the universe. You're preparing your consciousness to receive more prosperity. You're sending the signal that you're ready to handle greater amounts of money with wisdom and gratitude. Florence used to say, act as if it were impossible to fail. When you spend with gratitude and declare that money returns multiplied, you're acting as if it were impossible for you to remain in scarcity. You're living from the certainty of abundance instead of the hope of abundance. And this certainty is contagious. When you live from abundance, when you radiate financial confidence, you attract people, opportunities, and circumstances that are aligned with that vibration. You become a magnet for prosperity. People want to do business with you. Opportunities seek you out. Money feels attracted to your energetic field. Let me give you a very concrete example of how this works in real life. Imagine you have to pay rent this month and feel that familiar tension in your stomach. Instead of allowing that tension to dominate you, instead of entering the mental drama of, I don't know how I'm going to manage to pay everything, you breathe deeply and say with total conviction, I spend with gratitude and know this money returns to me multiplied. I give thanks for having a beautiful home to live in, for having a roof over my head, for having a safe place to rest and create. In that moment, you've transformed an act of scarcity into an act of abundance. You've changed your vibration from fear to gratitude. You've converted a transaction that contracted you into a transaction that expands you. And that new vibration immediately begins attracting experiences that are aligned with it. Maybe the next day, you receive an unexpected call for a freelance project. Maybe you find money you had forgotten in an old bank account. Maybe someone pays you a debt you had already given up for lost. Maybe your boss offers you an opportunity to earn extra money. The possibilities are infinite because you've opened your consciousness to abundance. Florence Scovel Shinn had a phrase I love: expect a miracle. When you spend with gratitude, when you declare that money returns multiplied, you're expecting a miracle. You're living in the expectation that something wonderful is about to happen in your financial life. And here's the profound truth. Miracles aren't supernatural events that violate natural laws. Miracles are the natural result of aligning your consciousness with universal laws. When you live in harmony with these laws, when you operate from abundance instead of scarcity, what others call miracles becomes your normal and daily experience. I want you to understand something very profound about the nature of money itself. Money isn't the final objective. Money is simply a symbol of your ability to create, of your alignment with the creative forces of the universe. When you transform your relationship with money, you're transforming your relationship with life itself. Florence taught that the man who has conquered fear has conquered life. When you conquer the fear of spending, when you transform financial anxiety into abundant gratitude, you're conquering one of the deepest and most primitive fears humanity has, the fear of survival. And from that conquest, from that freedom, you can create an extraordinary life. Not just a financially prosperous life, but a life full of purpose, passion, and meaningful contribution to the world. Because when you're no longer worried about basic survival, when you trust in the universe's provision, you can dedicate your energy to creating, serving, expressing your unique gifts. Let me tell you the story of Roberto, an entrepreneur I met several years ago. Roberto had built a successful business in the construction sector, but had a very tense and complicated relationship with money. Despite earning well, he always felt anxious about expenses. Every invoice that arrived caused him stress. Every investment in his business generated doubts. Every payment to suppliers produced that sensation of loss. Roberto lived in a constant state of financial worry, always calculating, always worrying about cash flow, always fearing that something would go wrong and he would lose everything he had built. This constant anxiety not only affected his personal well-being, but also limited his business growth, because he made decisions from fear instead of vision. When Roberto discovered Florence Scovel Shinn's teachings, initially he was skeptical. As a practical businessman, it seemed too simple that changing a few words could transform his financial reality. But he decided to experiment, because nothing else had worked to alleviate his chronic anxiety about money. He began applying exactly this practice I'm teaching you. Every time he had to pay a supplier, every time he invested in marketing, every time he paid salaries, every time he made any business-related expense, he repeated with conviction, "I spend with gratitude and know this money returns to me multiplied." At first it was difficult for him, especially with large expenses. When he had to pay $50,000 for a new machine, his instinct was to contract with worry. But he forced himself to breathe deeply, to feel gratitude for having the capacity to make that investment, and to declare that money would return multiplied. The results were extraordinary. In 6 months, his business had grown 40%. But more important than the financial growth was the change in his mental and emotional state. He no longer lived with that constant anxiety. He had developed a deep confidence in the abundance of the universe and in his own ability to create prosperity. As Roberto told me a year later, "It wasn't just that I changed my words about money, I changed my complete identity. I stopped being someone who fought against money and became someone who dances with it. I stopped being someone who feared scarcity and became someone who trusts in abundance." This identity transformation is absolutely key. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that man is what he believes he is. If you deeply believe you're someone who always struggles with money, that will be your perpetual experience. But if you believe you're someone who lives in natural harmony with abundance, that will become your new manifested reality. Now, I want you to understand something very important about this practice. It's not just about repeating words mechanically. It's about changing your fundamental relationship with money and with life itself. It's about recognizing that you live in an abundant universe, not a scarce one. It's about aligning with the universal laws that govern the manifestation of prosperity. Florence Scovel Shinn lived in an era of enormous changes and economic challenges. She saw World War I, the Great Depression, enormous fluctuations in financial markets, economic crises that ruined millions of people. However, she maintained unwavering faith in the abundance of the universe. As she wrote in one of her books, "There is no lack in the divine mind, therefore there can be no lack in my experience." This perspective is absolutely revolutionary. Most people live from the fundamental belief that there is scarcity, that there isn't enough for everyone, that they have to struggle and compete for limited resources. But Florence understood that we live in a universe of infinite abundance. She understood that scarcity is an illusion created by limited human consciousness, not an objective reality of the universe. When you spend with gratitude, when you declare that money returns multiplied, you're aligning with this universal truth of infinite abundance. You're declaring that you trust in the unlimited provision of the universe. You're affirming that there's more than enough for you and for everyone. You're recognizing that abundance is your natural state, not something you have to struggle to achieve. And here's something beautiful. When you live from this perspective of abundance, you not only change your own financial life, but you contribute to changing the collective consciousness about money. You become a living example that it's possible to have a harmonious and prosperous relationship with money. You inspire others to question their own limiting beliefs about abundance. Florence taught that every man is his own savior or destroyer. You have the absolute power to save yourself from scarcity and create abundance in your life. And it all begins with the words you choose to speak each day. with the thoughts you choose to think each moment, with the beliefs you choose to maintain about your relationship with money and life. But let me give you some additional tools to enhance this practice. Along with the main phrase, "I spend with gratitude and know this money returns to me multiplied," you can use these powerful affirmations based on Florence Scovel Shinn's teachings. My money is a river that constantly flows toward me from unexpected and wonderful sources. Every dollar I spend returns to me multiplied by 10, by 100, by 1,000. I am an irresistible magnet for wealth, opportunity, and divine abundance. My word is law in my universe, and I decree infinite prosperity manifesting now. All my needs are abundantly covered, all doors open for my supreme good. I give thanks for the abundance that flows toward me from all directions of the universe. Money loves me and seeks creative and unexpected ways to reach me. I am prosperous. I am abundant. I am financially free by divine right. My wealth increases each day in ways that surprise and deeply delight me. I completely trust in the infinite provision of the universe and act from that total confidence. These affirmations aren't just pretty words or superficial positive thoughts. They're powerful decrees that reprogram your subconscious mind. They're commands you give to the universe. They're instructions that change your energetic vibration. When you repeat them with total conviction and genuine feeling, you're literally rewriting the code of your financial reality. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that the man who blesses his finances never lacks money. When you bless every expense with gratitude, when you see every payment as an opportunity to circulate abundant energy, when you treat every transaction as a sacred act of energetic exchange, you're blessing your finances in the most powerful way possible. And here's something very few people understand deeply. Money is pure energy. It's energy crystallized in physical form. And like all energy in the universe, it needs to move constantly to stay alive, vibrant, and growing. When you withhold money out of fear, when you resist spending it, when you accumulate it from anxiety, you're blocking the natural flow of this vital energy. But when you spend with gratitude and confidence, when you allow money to flow freely through your life, when you release it with blessings and positive expectations, you're maintaining yourself in perfect harmony with money's energetic nature. And money, like all energy, naturally seeks more of the same harmonious vibration. Think of it this way. If you were a current of pure and crystalline water, would you prefer to flow through an open, clean, and clear channel, or through a channel full of obstacles, resistance, and blockages? Money, as conscious energy, prefers to flow toward people who allow it to move freely, who receive it with genuine gratitude, and release it with sincere blessings. Let me tell you another transformative story. I met a woman named Carmen who worked as a nurse in a public hospital. Carmen had a very painful history with money that went back to her childhood. She had grown up in a family where money was a constant source of conflict, where her parents regularly fought about bills, where she constantly heard phrases like, "There's no money," "We're poor," "Rich people are bad." As an adult, Carmen had deeply internalized these beliefs. Despite having a stable job and a decent salary, she lived in constant financial anxiety. Every expense caused her physical pain. She felt guilt when she bought something for herself. She lived in a perpetual state of self-imposed scarcity, obsessively saving, but never feeling financially secure. When Carmen discovered Florence Scovel Shinn's teachings, initially she resisted the ideas because they contradicted everything she had learned about money in her family. But her pain was so great that she decided to try something different. She began with small steps, applying the practice of spending with gratitude on minor purchases. The first time she bought a coffee and said, "I spend with gratitude and know this money returns to me multiplied," she felt ridiculous. But she persisted. Gradually, she began applying the practice to larger expenses. When she paid rent, when she bought food, when she paid for services, she always repeated the phrase with as much conviction as she could muster. The changes began subtly. First, she noticed she felt less anxious when she had to spend money. Then she began receiving small financial blessings, unexpected discounts, refunds she had forgotten, opportunities to work overtime. But the deepest change was in her emotional relationship with money. After 6 months of consistent practice, Carmen told me something that moved me deeply. For the first time in my life, I feel that money is my friend, not my enemy. For the first time, I can spend without feeling guilt or fear. I've healed a wound I've carried since childhood. A year later, Carmen had received 2 promotions at the hospital, had started a secondary health consulting business, and had tripled her income. But more important than the financial growth was the transformation of her identity. She had become a person who lived from abundance instead of scarcity. This identity transformation is absolutely crucial for the success of this practice. You can't simply repeat words of abundance while maintaining an identity of scarcity. You have to allow the words to change who you are at a fundamental level. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that the man who knows the truth of his being can never be poor. The truth of your being is that you're an infinitely creative being, connected with the unlimited abundance of the universe. Poverty, scarcity, financial struggle aren't your true nature. They're temporary experiences created by limiting beliefs. When you spend with gratitude and declare that money returns multiplied, you're remembering and reclaiming the truth of your being. You're aligning with your abundant nature. You're releasing the illusions of scarcity you've maintained and opening yourself to the reality of your natural prosperity. Now, I want to give you a very powerful practical exercise you can do to accelerate this transformation. For the next 7 days, you're going to keep an abundance journal. Every time you spend money, regardless of the amount, you're going to write 3 things. First, you're going to write exactly what you spent the money on and how much you spent. Second, you're going to write the complete phrase, "I spend with gratitude and know this money returns to me multiplied." Third, you're going to write 3 specific reasons why you're grateful for being able to make that expense. For example, if you buy food at the supermarket, you could write, "I spent $50 on food. I spend with gratitude and know this money returns to me multiplied. I'm grateful because 1. I have the ability to nourish my body with healthy foods. 2. I can choose from a variety of nutritious options. 3. I'm investing in my long-term health and well-being." This exercise does several powerful things simultaneously. First, it forces you to be conscious of every expense, transforming the act of spending from something automatic and unconscious into something deliberate and sacred. Second, it reinforces the new mental programming every time you write the affirmation. Third, it trains your mind to find genuine reasons for gratitude in every financial transaction. At the end of the 7 days, you're going to review your entire journal and you're going to notice something extraordinary. You're going to see that your relationship with money has begun to transform fundamentally. You're going to feel less anxiety, more gratitude, more confidence in the abundance of the universe. But don't stop there. Continue with the basic practice of repeating, "I spend with gratitude and know this money returns to me multiplied" every time you spend money. But now do it with the depth of understanding you've developed through the journal exercise. Florence Scovel Shinn taught something very profound about time and manifestation. She said that, in the divine realm, there is no time or space, only the eternal now. When you declare that money returns multiplied, you're not asking for something to happen in the future. You're recognizing a truth that already exists in the realm of infinite possibilities. Your job isn't to make money multiplication happen. Your job is to align with the reality where that multiplication already exists. It's to tune into the frequency of abundance. It's to become the person who naturally experiences growing prosperity. And here's something fascinating about how this universal law works. The more you practice spending with gratitude, the more opportunities you'll begin to see to spend wisely. Paradoxically, when you lose the fear of spending, you become smarter about how you spend your money. This happens because when you're no longer operating from fear and scarcity, your mind is freed to see opportunities and make connections you couldn't perceive before. When you're relaxed and confident about money, you make better financial decisions. When you trust in the abundance of the universe, you naturally attract better deals, better opportunities, better ways to use your money. Let me share with you the story of Alejandro, a young entrepreneur I met a few years ago. Alejandro had started a small graphic design business, but constantly struggled with pricing. He was so afraid of losing clients that he charged very little for his work. He lived in constant financial anxiety, working many hours but earning very little. When Alejandro learned about Florence Scovel Shinn's teachings and began practicing spending with gratitude, something interesting began to happen. First, he felt more confident about the value of his work. When he no longer feared spending money, he stopped fearing asking for fair prices for his services. He began investing in his business with confidence, buying better equipment, paying for additional training, investing in marketing. Every time he made these investments, he repeated, "I spend with gratitude and know this money returns to me multiplied." And indeed, each investment brought him greater returns. In 1 year, Alejandro had tripled his prices and doubled his number of clients. He had hired 2 employees and moved to a larger office. But most important was that he had transformed his scarcity mentality into an abundance mentality. As Alejandro explained to me, "When I stopped being afraid to spend money on my business, I stopped being afraid to charge what I'm worth. When I began trusting that money always returns multiplied, I began making decisions from abundance instead of scarcity. And that changed everything. This is the magic of living from abundance. When you really trust that money returns multiplied, you begin acting like someone who has abundance. And when you act like someone who has abundance, you attract experiences of abundance." Florence Scovel Shinn had a very sophisticated understanding of what we now call the law of attraction. She taught that, like thoughts attract each other. When your thoughts about money are aligned with abundance, you attract experiences, people, and opportunities that are aligned with that same frequency of abundance. But she also taught something that many people who study the law of attraction overlook: the importance of inspired action. It's not enough to think abundant thoughts. You have to act from abundance. And spending with gratitude is one of the most powerful actions you can take to demonstrate your faith in the abundance of the universe. Every time you spend with gratitude, you're taking an action that says, "I trust that there's more where this came from." You're demonstrating faith instead of fear. You're acting from abundance instead of scarcity. And the universe responds to your actions as much as to your thoughts. Now, I want to address something you might be thinking. But what if I really don't have much money? How can I spend with gratitude when I barely have enough for basics? This is a very valid question, and Florence Scovel Shinn had a very clear answer for this. She taught that, no matter how small the amount, when you give it with love and gratitude, it multiplies. The amount isn't what's important. The vibration with which you give or spend is what determines the return. If you only have $5 and you spend them with genuine gratitude and faith that they'll return multiplied, those $5 have more manifestation power than $1,000 spent with fear and resentment. The energy you put behind the money is more important than the amount of money itself. Additionally, when you begin practicing with small amounts, you're training your mind to operate from abundance. You're developing the muscle of financial confidence. You're proving to yourself that the law works, which will give you the confidence to apply it with larger amounts when you have them. Florence used to tell the story of a woman who only had 10 cents but gave them with so much love and gratitude that the next day she received $10 from an unexpected source. The return ratio was 100 to 1, not because the amount was large, but because the faith and gratitude were total. Let me give you another practical exercise you can do regardless of your current financial situation. For the next 30 days, you're going to find a way to give or spend at least $1 each day with total gratitude. It could be buying a coffee for a stranger, giving an extra tip, donating to a cause you care about, or simply buying something small you need. What's important isn't the amount, but the quality of gratitude and faith you put into the act. Every time you make this conscious expense, repeat, "I spend with gratitude and know this money returns to me multiplied." Then, stay alert to how the universe responds to your faith. At the end of 30 days, you'll have spent only $30, but you'll have completely transformed your relationship with money. You'll have trained your mind to see spending as investment instead of loss. You'll have developed a deep confidence in the abundance of the universe. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that faith without works is dead. It's not enough to believe in abundance theoretically. You have to demonstrate your faith through concrete actions, and spending with gratitude is one of the most direct ways to demonstrate your faith in the infinite provision of the universe. Now, I want to share with you something very important about the obstacles you might face in this practice. It's very likely that your rational mind will try to sabotage this process. You might hear internal voices saying things like, "This is ridiculous. It won't work. You're wasting money. You should be more practical." These voices aren't your true wisdom. They're echoes of the scarcity programming you've received for years. They're the limiting beliefs of your family, your culture, your society, trying to keep you in the same pattern of financial limitation. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that man must be willing to give up what he has to receive what he wants. To receive abundance, you have to be willing to give up beliefs of scarcity. To experience prosperity, you have to let go of ideas of limitation. When these voices of doubt arise, simply acknowledge them without judging them, and then redirect your attention to the practice. Remember that you're reprogramming decades of conditioning. It's natural for there to be resistance. But resistance is just evidence that change is happening. Let me tell you the story of Patricia, an accountant who had been extremely conservative with money her whole life. Patricia had grown up during the Great Depression and had learned to save every penny. Although this mentality had helped her accumulate a respectable amount of money, it had also kept her in a constant state of anxiety and limitation. When Patricia, already in her 60s, discovered Florence Scovel Shinn's teachings, initially, she strongly resisted the ideas. Everything in her conditioning told her that spending with gratitude was irresponsible, that declaring money would return multiplied was fantasy. But Patricia also realized that despite having money saved, she wasn't happy. She lived in constant worry about the future, never allowed herself to enjoy her prosperity, never felt truly secure no matter how much she had in the bank. She decided to experiment with small amounts. She began giving more generous tips and saying, "I spend with gratitude and know this money returns to me multiplied." Gradually, she began applying the practice to larger expenses. What happened surprised her completely. Not only did she begin receiving money from unexpected sources, tax refunds larger than expected, dividends from investments she had forgotten, consulting opportunities offered to her, but for the first time in her life, she began feeling true financial peace. As Patricia told me 2 years later, "I have less money saved now because I've been spending more generously, but I feel richer than ever. I've learned that true wealth isn't in how much you accumulate, but in how much you trust in the flow of abundance." Patricia's understanding touches something very deep about the nature of true wealth. Real wealth isn't a static amount of money in the bank. Real wealth is a state of consciousness, a way of relating to life from confidence instead of fear. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that wealth is a state of consciousness. When you develop abundance consciousness, when you live from confidence in the infinite provision of the universe, you're rich regardless of how much money you have at any given moment. And from that consciousness of wealth, you naturally attract more material wealth. But when you live from scarcity consciousness, when you operate from fear and limitation, you're poor regardless of how much money you have accumulated. I've known millionaires who live in constant financial anxiety and people with modest incomes who live in total abundance. The difference isn't in the figures of their bank accounts. The difference is in their relationship with money, in their confidence in life, in their ability to spend and give with genuine gratitude. Now, I want to give you some specific strategies for maintaining this practice when you face real financial challenges. Because let's be honest, there will be moments when it's difficult to feel gratitude when spending money. There will be situations where fear tries to dominate your mind. In those moments, remember that the practice is especially powerful. It's easy to spend with gratitude when you have abundance of money. The true transformational power comes when you can maintain gratitude and faith even in moments of apparent scarcity. Florence Scovel Shinn taught about the faith that moves mountains. This faith isn't blind optimism. It's a deep confidence in the universal laws that govern manifestation. When you spend with gratitude in difficult moments, you're exercising this faith that moves mountains. Let me give you a specific technique for these challenging moments. When you have to make an expense that causes you anxiety, before doing it, take 5 deep breaths. With each breath, repeat mentally, "I trust in the infinite abundance of the universe." Then, when you make the expense, say with all the conviction you can muster, "I spend with gratitude and know this money returns to me multiplied." After the expense, instead of allowing your mind to focus on the loss, immediately direct your attention to 3 things you're grateful for in your life. This helps maintain your vibration in gratitude instead of allowing it to sink into worry. It's also useful to remember that every time you practice spending with gratitude, especially in challenging moments, you're making a deposit in your universal trust account. You're demonstrating to the universe that you trust in its provision. And the universe always responds to genuine trust with more reasons to trust. Florence had a beautiful phrase, "Give the universe a chance." Every time you spend with gratitude, you're giving the universe a chance to demonstrate its abundance to you. You're giving it a chance to surprise you with its generosity. You're giving it a chance to show you that you really live in a universe of infinite provision. And the universe never wastes these opportunities. Maybe you won't see the results immediately. Maybe they won't come in the way you expect. But if you maintain the practice with faith and consistency, the results will come in ways that will surprise and delight you. I want to share with you one last story that perfectly illustrates the power of this practice. I met a man named Miguel who had lost his job during an economic recession. Miguel had a family to support and very few savings. He was in a desperate financial situation. Instead of going into total panic, Miguel decided to apply the principles of Florence Scovel Shinn that he had been studying. Every time he had to spend money, even for basic necessities like food and gasoline, he repeated with faith, "I spend with gratitude and know this money returns to me multiplied." At first, his family thought he had lost his mind. How could he be grateful for spending money when they had so little? But Miguel persisted. He maintained his faith even when his bank account reached almost zero. 3 weeks after beginning this practice, Miguel received a completely unexpected call. A company he had worked for years before contacted him to offer him a consulting project. The project not only paid him more than he had earned in his previous job, but led to a permanent job offer with a salary 50% higher than what he had lost. But the most notable thing about Miguel's story wasn't the external result, but his internal transformation. As he told me, "I learned that true security doesn't come from having money in the bank. It comes from trusting in my ability to create abundance regardless of external circumstances." This is the true magic of spending with gratitude. It not only changes your external financial situation, but transforms your fundamental relationship with security, confidence, and personal power. You become someone who knows they can create abundance from any starting point. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that the man who knows the truth of his being can never be poor. When you really understand that you're an infinite creative being, connected with the unlimited abundance of the universe, poverty becomes an impossibility. There may be temporary fluctuations in your financial situation, but poverty of consciousness is no longer possible. And that's true financial freedom. It's not having so much money that you never have to worry. It's having so much confidence in your ability to create abundance that you never have to worry. It's knowing that no matter what happens externally, you have the internal tools to create prosperity. Now, as we reach the end of this journey together, I want to leave you with some final reflections on the transformative power of this simple but profound practice. When you started listening to this, maybe you felt that familiar tightness in your chest when thinking about spending money. Maybe you lived in constant anxiety about your finances. Maybe you saw money as an enemy instead of an ally. But now you have a powerful tool to completely transform that experience. You have the teachings of one of the wisest spiritual teachers who ever lived. You have the scientific understanding of how mental reprogramming works. You have inspiring stories of real people who have transformed their lives using exactly these principles. But more important than all of that, you have the power. You have the power to choose the words you speak each day. You have the power to choose the thoughts you think each moment. You have the power to choose the vibration from which you live your life. Do the following. Practice for 1 week. Every time you spend on anything, say the phrase. It doesn't matter if you trust completely or not at first, just say it and pay attention to what reveals itself. Use a journal and write down the good things that appear. You're going to be amazed. Because when you transform the energy you apply to money, when you change that fundamental resonance, everything around starts changing too. And look, you don't need to do anything complex. You don't need candles, incense, elaborate prayers, complicated rituals, none of that. It's simple. You spent, you affirmed. The more you pronounce it, the stronger that new programming becomes in your brain. Soon, you won't even need to insist anymore. The phrase comes by itself, fluid, natural, because you've already become another person, a person who lives in prosperity, a person who trusts in the abundance of the universe, a person who sees every expense as an investment in their future abundance. So, the next time you're about to pay for something, whatever it is, breathe deeply, show a genuine smile, and repeat with all the conviction of your heart, I spend with gratitude and know this money returns to me multiplied. You can say it quietly, just so you register it. But say it really feeling it, with total faith, with genuine gratitude. And then stay alert, because your financial life is going to start revolutionizing completely. But toward the favorable side, toward the side of abundance, toward the side of prosperity, that is your birthright. The secret isn't winning the lottery. It isn't getting inheritance from a prosperous relative. It isn't great coincidence or extraordinary luck. The secret is in transforming what you declare and experience when the topic is money, because you attract toward you what you project from within with greater consistency. If you're always complaining and living with insecurity, more suffering comes, more scarcity, more reasons to complain. If you're always celebrating and living with confidence, more abundance comes, more prosperity, more reasons to celebrate. And this phrase you've learned today is the secret key that revolutionizes everything. Apply it every day with faith and discipline, and stay alert to the magic sprouting in your life. Because as Florence Scovel Shinn taught us with such wisdom, the man who knows the truth of his being can never be poor, because wealth is his divine inheritance. And that divine inheritance is waiting for you to claim it with every word you pronounce, with every expense you make with gratitude, with every declaration of abundance that comes from your transformed heart. Your new financial life begins now, in this moment, with the next word you pronounce about money. May it be a word of power, a word of gratitude, a word that opens the floodgates of infinite abundance that is your birthright. Trust the process. Trust the universal laws. Trust Florence Scovel Shinn's wisdom. But more than anything, trust yourself and your ability to create the prosperous life you deserve. So it is, and so it shall be. Abundance is yours. Prosperity belongs to you. Money returns to you multiplied. And it all begins with the gratitude you choose to feel in this moment. When you truly understand that money is energy, that your words are creative forces, that your relationship with spending determines your relationship with receiving, everything changes. You stop being a victim of financial circumstances and become a conscious creator of your economic reality. Florence Scovel Shinn lived through some of the most challenging economic times in modern history, yet she never wavered in her understanding that abundance is the natural state of the universe. She saw beyond the appearances of lack and limitation to the eternal truth of infinite supply. This is the consciousness you're developing. This is the awareness you're cultivating. Every time you spend with gratitude, every time you declare that money returns multiplied, you're aligning yourself with this eternal truth. You're stepping into your role as a conscious co-creator with the infinite intelligence of the universe. Remember, this isn't about positive thinking or wishful hoping. This is about understanding and applying universal laws that are as reliable as the law of gravity. When you drop something, it falls down. When you spend with genuine gratitude and faith, abundance flows back to you. It's not magic in the supernatural sense. It's the natural operation of a universe that responds to consciousness. The transformation you're experiencing isn't just personal. Every person who learns to live from abundance instead of scarcity contributes to raising the collective consciousness of humanity. You become a beacon of possibility, showing others that there's another way to relate to money and life. Your journey with money is really a journey of spiritual awakening. It's about remembering who you truly are, an infinite being temporarily having a human experience, connected to unlimited creative power, deserving of all good things. As you continue this practice, as you deepen your understanding of these principles, as you witness the miraculous changes in your financial reality, remember to share this wisdom with others. The universe multiplies what we share with love and generosity. Florence Scovel Shinn's teachings have survived and thrived for over a century because they contain timeless truths about the nature of reality and human potential. You are now part of this lineage of wisdom, carrying forward these transformative principles into your own life and into the world. The phrase, "I spend with gratitude and know this money returns to me multiplied," is more than words. It's a declaration of your divine nature, an affirmation of universal abundance, and a command to the creative forces of existence. Speak it with power. Live it with conviction. Trust it with your whole heart. And watch as your life transforms in ways more beautiful and abundant than you ever dared imagine. Your prosperity consciousness is awakening. Your abundance is manifesting. Your financial freedom is unfolding. And it all begins with the sacred act of spending with gratitude, knowing with absolute certainty that what you give to life, life gives back to you multiplied beyond measure. This is your time. This is your moment. This is your transformation. Embrace it fully, live it completely, and let your life become a testament to the infinite abundance that is your divine inheritance.